Welcome back, audience. Hope you're doing good. As always, it's a little cold up in here, but I'm going to record another little video. And today, I want to get a little bit more real, so to speak, and talk about something that is kind of actual and sort of like reel it in or bring it home that would be very applicable to day to day. And I just want to draw a little scope of what's going on, what is actual right now in your life. Um, no nonsense, no telling you some sort of what to believe or patting you on the back or blowing smoke up your butt or whatever. None of that nonsense, right? That's you can find that somewhere else, but this it's not on this channel. I'm gonna take you to the real, like how do you really play this game? It's what it and what it's all about as well. Okay, so primarily I'm gonna talking about the masculine way of dealing with um, the current situations in the world, and just to give you a little bit of like a scope of how it all works. And I just want to make it easier in this video, not to complicate things, because I know sometimes I go into quite detailed descriptions of things, and so I just don't want to do this in this video. I just want to be real with you for one, for in this video. Okay, so what you may be experiencing, either two of the corrupt energies that may enter your consciousness, and let's call it one wrath and another one lust. Okay, and that is anger or angst, that energy that's sort of rising inside of you. And that energy means something, right? Now, how you're going to handle the wrath is going to be very, very important. How you're going to play it. If you handle the wrath and lust in the right way, what's going to happen? You're going to stabilize on another level of peaceful bliss, okay? But only after defeating these demons. Now we live in a time that these things are quite intense. These tests are very strong and powerful. Okay? So, in this particular occasion, it is best to buckle up. And let me explain what I mean by that. Wrath may make you want to do stuff that is destructive. Things will appear to sort of like, or may already appear to sort of try to draw the reaction out of you, make you take some sort of action out of anger without thinking. And any action that you're gonna take out of anger without clarity, I should say, not thinking but clarity, it will come back to bite you, and you will have lost the battle against that demon. So that angst, that anger, whatever it may be caused by, it doesn't really matter. What matters that it arising inside of you. In me, sometimes it's enough to be in the presence of some guy that carries a lot of that evil shit energy, and I immediately start feeling it, and I get to work on alchemizing it. This is real meditation. This is no bullshit. This is a capacity of use of your willpower when it's necessary. None of these stubborn bullshit in the belief system and defending some fucking belief system, you know? Wasted energy of willpower. But the complete and only adequate use of willpower is prevention from taking action that may lead to either um, satisfying the lustful craving or satisfying the anger craving. And in both cases, it's sort of subduing the innocence, if you will. Okay? So you don't want to go that way. Which means in this particular occasion, I have to say that it's quite extreme. And what is maybe asked of you is quite extreme as well. Just for now, it does not mean that you have to become, live a life in ascetic manner. But when it comes to lust, at this point in time, it is best to basically say no to any kind of sex. I talked about this in a previous video. Um, it is about not having this lower drive orgasm. Okay? That doesn't mean that you avoid any temptations of lust. No, you live your life normally, you socialize normally, but any of these temptations that arise must be alchemized. That is the water challenge, right? You must not give in to the temptation of lust because it's trying to make you have that lower drive orgasm. Okay? You continue living your life. You can even go on a dates if you want. You can do whatever it you normally do without any kind of intention of it ending in sex. That will make you alchemize that lost energy, and that'll make you appreciate sensuality and other things, and transmuting that energy and having a satisfaction of that blissful and that orgasmic feeling that uh, it's not like before through that animalistic drive. I know what I'm saying here is quite it may sound extreme, but at this particular point, if you really want to level up, if you really want to break through and stabilize yourself in another level, that's what is being asked of you right now. That doesn't mean that you're never going to have sex, but at this particular time, it until you stabilize in that new level of coherence, that must be off the table. Okay? Same thing with alcohol, same thing with weed, same thing with anything that can wobble your attention and take it away from that point in that circle where it needs to be placed, because it requires so much attention to handle that much of that dysregulated rat energy, right? That's separating energy, and it's once it creates a desire as it separates, and you can weave it back together externally through that temporary pleasure like this lower drive orgasm, or you can weave it internally, which leads to the light passion, as I call it, that internal bliss, which gives you that internal coherence, which later stabilizes, and then once it's stabilized, then you can maybe have some alcohol, smoke some weed, and even have sex and still not to be out of it, because everything that's going to happen from that point of being is already going to be adequate, right? You're not going to overdo things. Alcohol is not going to take you out. And you're not going to, first of all, you're not going to drink alcohol to get drunk or lose that attention. You may just have a little bit of wine with your steak and whatnot, right? Same thing with sex. Most of it is about sensuality, and um, through the sensuality, most of that satisfaction that you used to have in sex, it will be already there. And sex is not going to be excuse me. it's some part of me doesn't want to say it, but sex is not going to be that much of a big deal, so to speak, and it's not going to be in excess, just like that glass of wine with the steak kind of thing. Everything in the right place and adequate, right? So hopefully I'm communicating this right. Okay, again, to summarize, the challenges you're going to be receiving will be about the wrath and lust. Okay, and you already are, of course. Okay, and I'm talking about how no longer be a hypocrite, so to speak, and talk about this and be appalled about perversion in some people, and yet engage in a minor version of that yourself. You see, I'm sort of talking about the complete ending of that world, and it's a huge opportunity. Let me just say that it is an enormous. It's an opportunity of the cosmical scale for you to be brought in to this level of intensity. It gives you an opportunity to stabilize at this level of coherence. It's a gift and it's an opportunity. Do not miss this portal. Okay? I'm almost talking with myself here. In a way I am, looking at the bigger picture, that's what I do, but it's important message to send to myself. um, um, because look what may happen. You may do everything right, you can alchemize everything right, and then there may be maybe one occasion where you're like, smoke a little too much, drink a little too much, and then your mind says like, hey, don't take your life so seriously, just go watch porn, you deserve a little bit of pleasure in your life. And then chung chung boom boom poof, you lost everything that you built up, and now you have to go on another cycle to build up to that point again. So next time you're brought to that point of critical mass, okay, you're gonna have to use your willpower. You're gonna have to use the frame control that I'm talking about lately, to use your willpower to prevent and ban and forbid yourself from any of these things. Not ultimately in your life, but this particular moment, until you have that new coherence, until you pass these tests. And therefore, because right now you cannot trust yourself, because if you lose the attention because it hasn't been solidified yet, you will lose the attention. And the moment you lose the attention, you're going to do things in excess, inappropriately, and so on, so on, so on. You see what I'm trying to say? Which is then obviously, you will lose that opportunity to weave it internally, because you'll lose the focus and you're going to have to weave it externally. And so instead of like weaving it into joy, you're going to have to pacify it with pleasure. And you really, really do not want to do that right now. You may have some doubts about like, yeah, like what do I do about this? Maybe a little bit is okay. It's like, no, I'm saying that right now, none of it. None of it. There's time and a place, but at this particular time of what's going on, because we live in time, and time has form and fractals in it, it's the time that brings you these challenges inside you. And as you are alchemizing them, you're building up, building up, building up that light. And once you get to that ultimate point, that's when it's important not to fall back. Because on that ultimate point, if you do not fall back, it's going to solidify on a new level, and you're going to find a new level of coherence. Okay? From which then you're going to be operating. That's going to be your set point, and everything in your reality is going to have to fall into that particular point. Because if you don't, if you fail that test, it will fall back. It will also see all your manifestations failing, luck disappearing, and so on and so on. Because where did you get where did you put that energy, that passion, that? And so if it was just a lower drive orgasm, you just gave it away to the matrix. You gave it to your enemy. Okay? And you don't want to do that. You really do not want to do that anymore. Okay? Again, you may need a lot of willpower, but if you do not waste your willpower on anything else, and you say, well, the only thing that I'm going to use my willpower is to prevent myself from doing actions that is sort of like out of pacifying pleasure. If you just say no to any of this shit, like no to this, no to this, no to that, and then your mind is going to be all right. We can't go this way. Then that may arise. For example, if you don't watch porn, don't masturbate, don't do any of these things, that energy will start rising. That wrath gonna start rising. That temptation of lust gonna start rising. Good, let it come up, and then face it and alchemize it and do your game. Already talked about this many, many times, of how you're gonna have to state control. That's an art. It's mostly art, a little bit of science. It's the science part is so simple. The science part is like you have a capacity to focus on something, that's attention, and be aware of the background, that's awareness, right? And so that something that you may need to surrender, some doubt over there, and something that you may need to face, courage, right? That's the maximum complexity of science in alchemy. At theurgy, things get a little bit like more complicated. There's you see what I'm trying to say. But alchemy, which is a process of destruction and reweaving into something that is in coherent order into the coherent order, that's as complex as it gets in the science part. Then everything else is art. There's so much art there, and art is not fully defined. It's like it is flowing. This is why, like, what you're gonna do each time is kind of different, but you know how to play with it. You know how to focus that energy, right? For example, if any kind of triggering outside you happening, and if you move your attention away from your center onto that thing, that's when you just bloop, you lost your attention and you lost your coherence. You have to remain it in the center in the face of that really, really strong force of trying to take you out of it. It is a fight. It's an attention. It's a fight for your attention. Not exactly willpower. The willpower you use before the willpower, you say no to this, no to that, not gonna take this, I'm not gonna accept this, this isn't just, no, no, no. You're saying no with your willpower. You don't give in. And if you don't give in, then the wrath is gonna start arising. That's when the demon is coming and rearing its ugly head. And then you say, hello, motherfucker, and you burn it with your attention. And this is basically the essence of the exorcism. And these demons may be the masculine, which is wrath, and the feminine, which is lust. Okay? And this is why uh, you should be living your life normally, meaning life will give you these challenges and these temptations, right? What you don't do is you don't isolate yourself where there are no triggers. Okay? You don't become like a monk and say like, oh no, I'm not going to look at a beautiful woman anymore, or you don't do any of that nonsense. You live your life normally. You do look at a beautiful woman. You get tempted. That lust energy arises. You alchemize that. It makes you feel good, and you just appreciate the woman, but you don't want to subdue her innocence. Okay? And so that you still interact with women. You find a new appreciation when it's not about sex. There's a new level of sensuality that you may encounter that is there. And all your creativity, stems from that. And but you don't avoid it. Okay? And women will also appreciate somebody who is not just sex driven, uh, and not women will appreciate somebody who's not giving in to their temptation. You see, there's a part of her ego part, which is like that water, is that is trying to tempt a man. If the man loses that battle, then ego wins. But that's not what her soul wants. Okay. Same thing with wrath. Men may be testing you. Okay. You have to stand your ground. You have to stand what is just, what is fair. You're not looking for trouble, but you are functioning as a normal man, and anything that's supposed to be just must be reinforced. If that causes any kind of wrath or anger, same thing. Boom, face it and alchemize it. And that will bring you to a new level of intensity that is gradually will become more and more stable. Okay. No nonsense, no attacking anybody, you know um, no shouting, no raising your voice, none of that stuff. Okay. On this side, which is would be some form of like physical or verbal domination, forbidden. It will apply the pressure on your alchemy, and you take it. Your willpower is used there to say no to this type of behavior. It will apply a lot of pressure in your system for your alchemy, and you alchemize everything, right? That's your frame control that um, evokes all these challenges that are there that are need to be faced with your state control. Okay. And so I decided I'm going to shoot this little video, and I'm going to be real with you, because I know I speak with my friends, my male friends, and we're all going through very similar things. That energy of like being pissed off, seemingly out of nowhere, that challenge, the chemical challenge that arises, and so there's a handful of men in my friend circle who know what's going on, who are battling this out, um, you know, and learning the importance of this, and like at least attempting this, at least having that intention. Okay, and then there might be moments of slippage where you just say, ah, fuck it, and you just slip in. Hopefully not too much damage done. Go back on your horse and continue, as long as the goal is clear of what needs to be done. Okay, what else I can say about this? Yeah, you may already know this, um, or like intuit that that's probably the like basically have boundaries that you prevent any kind of action to pacify your ego, and let that come out and alchemize. What I'm trying to say is that no alcohol, no weed, no sex, and no fighting, no shouting, no raising your voice. The all of these things that was all right before is not there. Okay, no more. And focus on your alchemy. Once everything is stabilized, once the war is over, you'll know. And anything that you consume is not going to take you out. And sex is going to be out of love. Again, is not going to take you out. The beast is not going to take over you. Okay? That's how you deal with it. That's how you fight this battle. Um, I don't know. I sometimes see other people talking about things, but it's just distraction. Okay? It's a distraction. I'm simplifying things for you as a man because you're dealing with this every day. I know some form of lust and some form of wrath. Not complicating things. I'm telling you that these need to be dealt with, and it's not okay to just let it go. Okay, it's not okay. If you gotta always go back, you know, on in your horse, on your back on your horse, so to speak. And I think this year is the year of the horse. So okay, right? Because if you don't do this, and if you let the frame go, the energy is going to dissipate. You won't have possibility to alchemize anything, and um, you won't receive the real power. You won't receive the real coherence, the real stability that starts manifesting things on that particular level for you. Perhaps this cycle, this year, if it may cost you time and focus and energy to alchemize everything, but once it stabilizes, it's just gonna you're going to reap the rewards naturally because it's already stable. You have to understand how massive is the return on investment on the cosmical scale in your life. this is. And I'm trying not to um, be vague about this. Oh shit, I think anyway, it's better this way. I'm not being poetic here. I'm not saying, oh, and then your consciousness, unified, and not none of that nonsense. I'm just saying for real what's happening. Okay, anything else I can add to this? And don't, like, be smart about this, be intelligent about this, understand that it's about alchemy and stopping the leakages of the energy in order for that energy to arise there, so you can alchemize, so you can have that peaceful, blissful state in your heart at all times. You're doing this for that. These are your gems. And you don't want to have any kind of leakages. This is why hermeticism, if you look at the word hermeticism or something is that hermetic, what does that mean? It means sealed off. There's no leakages anymore. Right? No, nothing can take your energy anymore. And then, which means all the energy is dedicated to your soul, which then comes in as this fountain of energy, manifesting things in a physical. This is where you want to invest all your energy, right? Trust me on this. Do it and you'll see. And it may not be easy, and you may be put in a situation where, like, holy fuck, like, you may be super scared. Like, you may enter a state of consciousness where you're like, fuck, I don't know if I can handle this shit. But you just gotta find a way. You gotta find that middle ground between that, intensity and that void. And I can tell you that any kind of incoherent state can be dealt with like that. Anything. Okay? You can deal with anything like that. Just have to trust that it's very powerful, your capacity for the courage and surrender in a state control world that you have. Okay? And what I mean by saying just be intelligent, be smart about this, don't try to trick yourself, because um, this might be a part of you that is kind of trying to trick you and saying like, well, I said no to sex, but then you say yes to porn or something like that, um, but you have not really dealt with it directly. And how do you know that you're dealing with? Your attention is always where it's supposed to be. That's how you know. If your attention is being pulled away from the center, then you're not dealing with it. Because you can only lose your shit when your attention is pulled away from the center. Okay? And anything outside of you that the stronger is the demon is going to try to pull that energy away. I'm talking about the actual metaphysical, energetical uh, dynamics, the toroidal dynamics that is taking place on the energy level. This is real shit. This is electromagnetic phenomena that works with everything that you've encountered, pushing away the something that is not good, attracting something that it is good automatically for you. That's the power of logos. Okay? But it's asking you to use your willpower for the frame control, and it's asking you to use your attention for the state control. Attention and awareness to state control. Okay? I'm not being gooey about this. I'm being as precise as possible, and I'm being poetic about this. I'm just being precise as possible. There's there's no need. Once you describe that state, then yeah, you can be super poetic to describe that state, but does that help another person? Because that person did just me to be imagining that state and not really living. But alchemy is clear, it's very precise. You feel something's off in your body, you place your attention there, okay? And then there might be some doubt coming up or valuation and say, well, that feels bad, feels bad, feels bad. Then you surrender that, and that, and there you go. And then you just alchemize, and now the state feels kind of whoa, cool. And so you want to take that energy. You know, people sometimes say like, well, you got to take your power back. And then what do the people do? Yes, I'm going to take my power back. And then they keep on saying this affirmations or something, and that's just another belief, and there's another band-aid solution. You're not taking your power back. Taking your power back is an intense alchemical experience. It's a demon slaying process. It's a real meditation. And unless you have courage and unless you have capacity for surrender, you're not doing that. Then you're creating another just made up nonsense, saying that I'm taking back my power, but you're not actually doing any of that sort on an energy level. Okay. Now I see some, it's quite interesting. Um, I don't know. Sometimes it happens like that when I mention nervous system and I said that nervous system is really uh, is sort of like a depiction of your soul, and that's what um, material science understands as a soul. Like, you know, that's as far as it goes to understand sort of like or be close to metaphysics. But if scientist is not experiencing altered state of consciousness and sees the structure of consciousness that is uh, besides the physical reality, it cannot, the scientist cannot be studying metaphysics, only physics. But some scientists can study metaphysics and do, and they can see things and they can do experiments in this is why the metaphysics is such a sort of like almost um, woo woo stuff, but it's not woo woo stuff. It's a very, very real, tangible stuff. But what I'm trying to say here is that it is just as physics. By observing your nervous system, you get a clue of what's going on the metaphysical level. Okay? Now, if somebody would measure your states, they would detect, and you know, if you're feeling bliss, they would detect it and say, "Where the fuck is this coming from?" And then they will find somewhere like in your nervous system, right, where there are knots and nodules in your heart area, um, and they say, "Well, these are firing up, right?" But what made them fire up? Nothing material, nothing physical. You didn't take any drug, right? And so that part they cannot explain. Same thing in your brain when you're feeling bliss in your head. The same thing. It would be like, whoa, these are things firing up. The same thing in your gut as well. When you're feeling bliss there, that's firing up. But it did not come from anywhere external. It was just purely through your state control upon alchemizing these energies. Okay, it gives you access to all sorts of pharmacopoeia, as I call it. It gives you access to all the drugs, the state of consciousness that you may feel like you're on a crack cocaine. I've never done crack cocaine, but I kind of have an idea of what that may feel like. It is quite intense, blissful, powerful experience, I suppose. I don't know, but I don't know. I just have a feeling that that's what it's like. Then, you know, being high, uh, same thing. That state can also be acquired through uh, theurgy. Now we're talking about theurgy. It's specifically evoking a specific state as needed after the alchemy is done. Once you alchemizing those energies and you have that coherence, that sort of like infinite feeling of peaceful and blissful, then what you do with that may be evoking a state akin to any taking any drug, like being high on LSD or being high on weed or being high on crack, but you're not taking anything externally. using your own system to evoke these states, and it can be done. Now, I'm just going a little bit too deep right now, but um, how you're going to use that energy, that peaceful, blissful energy that you're going to acquire through the alchemy, it depends on what your life goals are and whatnot, right? But let me tell you, um, you may feel like you're tripping balls, but without the loss of your attention, without the loss of that, um, your brain coherence, it is very different. Like when you're tripping, when you're taking, some mushrooms and whatnot, or smoking weed, there is a cost that you pay and the control of the attention. But in this, it's very crisp and it's clean, but you can see it. You can say, "What? I know this state," and you know, okay. Anything else that I should add about this? It's worth it. It is the value itself, because if you look at the world and how everything it works, is like, why would anybody do anything, right? They do it so they could feel like that. But you can, if you just do you know what I described here, and how it all works, you will definitely acquire that peace, bliss type of energy, as people call it right now. Is getting very popular. Nervous system, it became like a hack word, without, or phrase, without using metaphysical you know things. But like the ego is always very clever, and then they latch on this word and it becomes something else. And um and also, you don't want to be a freak about this as well, because I see some people that, say, well, that's how it works, and then they do some sort of like healings, and they say that, you see what I'm trying to say, like, don't be fruity about it, because this looks very normal, very regular. It does not look weird at all. When you're alchemizing while you're dealing with somebody, you just seem very focused and stern and assertive. You're not being weird about it, right? Like the life still looks very normal. Just you feel, I mean, you may look and you may come across to somebody who's maybe playing a role in the movie, just because of that level of attention that you need to have, your behavior changes. Okay, so you may come across different to other people, and you say, okay, you see what I'm trying to say. But I'm making another fruity nonsense out of this. Rituals. Sometimes people say, well, rituals are very important. Um, Rituals is the part of frame control. And any ritual, like something that helps you to have that frame, it's helpful. Okay. And again, that may look very normal and very natural. Um, Exercise in the morning, breath work in the morning, gym, focused work. You see, like the discipline, the frame control. And that's your rituals that actually functional, and it's nothing sort of away from living life directly. You see, um, you know, going to the gym is a type of ritual. Going, doing martial arts is a type of ritual. Going dancing is a type of ritual. You already have all sorts of possibilities in your life to do these rituals. Again, you don't have to be weird about it. Even going on a date is a type of ritual. And that is just part of your life. Okay? Again, I'm just closing the doors for any ego tricks to escape for the sake of, you know, that energy arising. And like, no, don't, like I said, don't be afraid of that energy happening. You want that to happen, that disconnect into you arising, so then you can weave it back together in the correct way. Okay? All right, 45 minutes. I don't know. I don't think we should continue on the subject, but wrath control, lust control, right? Through state control and the frame control. And if you had any doubts that should I do this, that's kind of weird not to have sex at all. Well, that's kind of weird, and to limit, my self expression in as a man, and should I, you know, not be aggressive anymore? Like all of those questions. And the answer is yes, 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 yes. Apply as much pressure as possible for your alchemy. Okay? There are times in life where you have to go like this. Once you stabilize, once you already um the war is over, then you're going to be stabilized. You're not going to be vulnerable anymore. And then you can, like I said, have a glass of wine. That's not going to take you out of the coherence. And basically, once the coherence is stable, you're not going to be taken out of it that easily, and that gives you an opportunity to enjoy um, limited pleasures that your body likes, but your because there's no ego there, because there's the coherence. Your soul doesn't need it because it already feels that energy, but your body still has these needs, and it's going to be just for the body. Okay, because body may, for example, may have a need to relax, or to exercise, or whatever, right? So a glass of wine uh, with uh, with the steak, as I said, or just, or a little bit of beer, it just relaxes your system and the body. It feels good, but it doesn't really touch any of your nervous system, right? And affects your consciousness in any way, because it does not need to be affected. You do not drink to be intoxicated. You don't smoke weed to be intoxicated, and you don't have sex to be intoxicated. Okay? All right, guys. I'm rooting for you. Cut out all the bullshit. Go straight to the point. Break through. Stabilize. And then enjoy life. Peace. And I'll see you in the next one.